All right, friends, welcome back to the Gritty Bowman podcast. This is part 2 of the navigation podcast. If you missed part 1, you can find it in the Gritty Bowman library. All right, Aron drained the tank, and we are back.
Yeah. So we covered just about everything we wanted to cover, except the explanation or a little bit more in-depth explanation of a UTM grid coordinate, and then how to plot that on your map or your position from that coordinate. So again, UTM was when the entire Earth was split into 60 sections, and those 60 sections are basically 1 through 60 from left to right, and then they're from bottom to top, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So when you turn your GPS on and it's programmed for UTM grid coordinate, you're going to have a section. It won't say section on it, but you'll see like a 1, 3, and an S. So 2 numbers and then a letter. That'll match up with your map that you're using, everything being equal and correct. That part's easy because it tells you your section on your map, and you can't screw that up. But the complicated part is the 4, 6, 8, and 10-digit grid coordinates of the exact grid square that you're in. So UTM is figured out off of meters, and a UTM grid square is 1,000 meters by 1,000. So it's a 1,000-meter box, basically. 1,000 meters left to right, 1,000 meters top to bottom, or bottom to top. So what we're wanting to get is, one, the map section, which is easy enough. We talked about that earlier. Somewhere on the map of the world, this is a horrible drawing. You're going to be in a section on this, and the map that you buy for the area you're in will tell you that section that
One of those 60 sections, or where a couple of those sections intersect, or
right.
But it'll basically be 13S, for example, where you're at. That's the one of those 60 sections that your map is covering.
Right. So when you turn on your GPS, your section, when you turn on and it gives you your grid coordinate, your section will match up with your map. That part is easy. Where it gets more difficult is when you turn on your GPS and it has all those other numbers. And I have my GPS on. And so can you read that, Brian?
Yep, 13S0480 or 88477.
Yeah.
And then the numbers below as well.
So what this means, when you have the 0488477, what this basically says is you're 488,477 meters east of the beginning of the 60 sections. Okay, so that's your easting or your easting distance. Now that goes from the entire world to one little section you're in. With a 10-digit grid, you're within 1 meter of your exact position. And then the next number, same thing, 4404132.
Show me that number. That's the bottom number.
Bottom number. Okay. So the first 2 digits in that are usually smaller. So on your map, which these digits do not coincide with my GPS because I used easy numbers. But as you can see how I've written it, you have 2 little numbers and then you have bigger numbers.
Yep.
Okay. The little numbers are not that important. So I'm not saying forget about those, but the big numbers are what puts you in a grid square. So now, if you look at this with my crappy handwriting, 4, 6, 8, 10-digit grid coordinates. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean you're going to have 10 numbers in one line. It's that your easting and your northing coordinates, meaning your top line of numbers and your bottom, those will add up to 10 digits totally, or to 4, 6, or 8. So looking at my GPS, if you look at those first 2 digits of each, you don't want to completely disregard those, because those get you, they're just not as important. We'll just say that gives you the big number, because the 448,000 or 3,300,000, that brings you over to that map you're in for a very broad explanation. So, but we are going to talk about is the more pinpointed locations. So with the numbers on my GPS, and when you turn on your GPS, the first two numbers need to match up with the first two numbers on your actual map. Meaning,
The small numbers.
yeah. So for your easting and your northing, the smaller numbers.
So 33, and then
And
below you have
04.
04.
Yeah. So
Those should match up with the first two numbers on the top and the first two numbers on the bottom of your grid coordinate.
right, but they don't. They're not as important.
But they don't really matter because they're the same number. Usually, that number is across your whole map.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the position you're in.
Yeah.
Been a very broad
For
explanation.
most hunting situations. Now, if you're Delta Force and you're traveling, by plane and then parachuting, and if you're covering major distances, perhaps that number matters more. But here in this situation, most of the time, that number's not going to matter that much.
Well, and where it comes into play is if you've paid attention to what we've already talked about, and you've plugged in the correct map datum, and you've plugged in UTM, and then you buy the correct map for where you're going. Meaning, if I'm in Colorado but I'm going to Idaho, and I pick a wilderness area and I buy that map, by default, if I've done everything on my part, when I turn on my GPS, those first two little digits will match up with the first two little digits on my GPS.
They should. Yep.
They should. If they don't, you're in trouble. You've done something.
Right.
So we're going to break it down.
Just a sanity check.
Yeah, exactly. So on your map, you're going to have, if you buy a map, a UTM grid map, it's pretty simple. You're going to have UTM coordinates or tick marks around the map. Now, if you buy a straight up UTM map, every square in that map is 1,000 meter by 1,000 meter grid square, and it really simplifies things. Now, with my map I'm using, it just has tick marks in blue every 1,000 meters for my UTM grid squares. So looking at it, I'm going to flip this over. I've drawn two, so we can forget about the little digits. Once I flip this over, make sure it's correct, we've got...
That's so pretty, Aaron.
I know. We've got the easting and the northing dimensions, or not dimensions, but the numbers.
Yep.
So what we're trying to do is figure out where we are at, pinpointed in one of these squares.
One of those 1,000 by 1,000 meter squares.
Yeah, because UTM is off 1,000 off of meters. So what I'm going to do now is explain the difference in 4, 6, 8, and 10 digit grid coordinates. So this would be a very large map, let's say, and there's topography on there and mountains and streams and all kinds of crap. So when I get my grid coordinate from my GPS, and we're just going to base that off of this sheet of paper right here.
Yep.
When I say a 4-digit grid coordinate, again, that's 2 digits for my easting
and
2 digits for the northing. So we figure out our easting dimension first. So what I wrote down here was 4421. 44 is my easting, 21 is my northing. So we've got 42, which is this one, 43 is this one, 44. Right there, I'm in this, so one of these grid squares here, because this is the 44th line I need to follow. Now the next one is 21. That's my northing. So I start from the bottom, and I've got 20, 21, 22, and 23. Now for some reason, I drew the grid square one too far up this morning because I hadn't drank enough coffee, but you get the idea.
Right. I was going to say, these are not matching up.
Yeah, I panicked. I don't know. I panicked. So, all right. So
you come across
4421. So
you always start left to right or
Yep.
east to west. You come across, and so the grid coordinates, like you said, was 44, 22.
21, but I have it written as 22.
Okay.
But either way, maybe doing it wrong is a good thing, so I can explain this. Now that I'm on 44, my digits I wrote down here that I screwed up is 21. That gets me to a 1,000 meter grid square. So a 4-digit grid coordinate gets me within 1,000 meters of my position.
So
now,
with a 4-digit coordinate grid that you're somewhere inside that square.
Yep. And the reason why I did this actually is so I didn't clutter up the grid square we're in, for an example. Because,
Excellent. Well,
yeah,
well thought out.
this is my grid square. So right now we are in this grid square. This is just an example of this grid square here.
Got it.
So 44, 21, we are in this. That's a 4-digit grid. Now we're going to go to a 6-digit grid coordinate. Again, the 6-digit grid coordinate is not 6 total numbers, it's 3 and 3. What this tells me here is I'm
Easting
in
and northing.
Yeah, I'm in the 44th easting, 21st northing, and then I am easting 300 meters from that line, and I'm northing 700. That gets me now, by default, within 100 meters with a 6-digit grid coordinate. So, roughly here, I'm 300 over, and I'm about 700 up. So I'm somewhere up here, roughly, right? I haven't
Yeah,
plotted
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
Because that's 1,000 meters by 1,000 meter square, so I can even guess, if I divided that in half, about
Yeah.
where half is, and then go
Yeah.
up a little bit more, half of that, and I'm at 700, and then come
Exactly.
across easting, westing, or easting, northing, and show me.
Okay. So this is broken into, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 meters. Okay. 100-meter sections.
Yep.
So I've made this as simple as I possibly can because we screwed this up. I did royally last time. So now this is my 44th, when we talked about 44 and 21.
Yep.
Now that we're in here.
Now that we're in that 1,000 by 1,000 meter square section.
Right. I've got this flipped up. I had, for my 6-digit grid, I had 300 is my easting. And I had 3 is my easting and 7 is my northing, meaning 300 and 700. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I'm 1 line, 2 line, 3 lines over. I'm in this grid square somewhere. Okay. And then northing, I go up 7. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right. So
It
what
reminds
happened?
me of a multiplication table.
Kind of. Actually. Don't even say that.
Or dude, if you've ever played Battleship, right?
I have a long time ago. I did watch the movie.
Because you're just basically plotting out, where you're at, and a 4-digit gets you into that 1,000 by 1,000, and then a 6-digit gets you into with where you're at within 100 meters within that 1,000 by 1,000 square.
Yep.
Then what happens?
And then an 8-digit grid. So you've got 4 and 4. And the reason why I've drawn these hash marks in here is that is your grid square to simplify things. This is your pinpoint location in the square. So I've written down here 4-digit 1,000, 6, 100, 8-digit, you're within 10 meters. Okay?
Excellent. Totally got it.
Now, if you took one of these grid squares, and just give me a second. Okay, very rough drawing here. We are in that little square there. So now we went from 1,000. Now we're within 100 meters of where we are in this little grid square. All those little lines you can barely see.
Those are 10.
Which is not accurate. That's 10-meter increments.
Right.
So now we're within 100 meters, which gets you to a lake probably or whatever. But if I want to get to Conlon McConnell's cache, I need to get what's pretty damn close, within 10 to 1. So an 8-digit grid gets you within 10. So now I know I'm 300.
Move it into the center. Hopefully we were getting that earlier.
Okay.
Center more. Yeah.
All right. That's weird because my camera's over here. I'm cross-eyed. So 8-digit grid, now you see 32 and 74. So pretty simple, 320, 740. So now I'm within 10 meters of stealing all Conlon's crap.
Slide it back a little bit. There we go.
This sucks on a podcast. So 320, easting.
Yep.
740, northing.
Yep.
So now I want to get pinpoint. I want to get 1 meter. Okay. So if I could draw in one of these crappy little squares I drew. Okay.
Another 10 increments, basically.
Exactly.
Those would
And
be
it's
1 meter
here.
increments.
It would be 1 meter increments.
Woo.
All UTM is breaking down the Earth
Mm-hmm.
from 60 sections, and you're breaking it down. The bigger the number that you get on a grid coordinate, which 10 is as big as you're going to get, you're breaking it down to 1 meter. So when you're in the military, if you go into high-speed land nav courses, there's a post, right? You get dropped off in a Black Hawk or whatever, and there's some mean-looking bastard standing there, and he says, "Show me where you're at. Show me where you're going." You have two separate grid coordinates. One of those grid coordinates, one of those 10-digit grid coordinates, is exactly where I'm at. One is where I'm going. I plot those 2 points out, and I do all the stuff we've talked about, get my bearing, and I say, "Sergeant, I am here, and I am going here." And then he kicks you in the butt, and off you are to find another little post in the middle of nowhere. And that has another 2 different grid coordinates.
Sweet.
That confirms the first top one, that confirms that I actually hit the right one, so it should match. The next one is where I'm going to my next grid coordinate. Now, using that for a hunting situation, which this is obviously 1 meter. Finding an elk is, right, a dead elk, you need a 10-digit grid coordinate. Now, you can start yelling, right, and, "Hey, where are you at?" You know, I mean, you can get a 6 and probably get close to 1,000 might get you to glass the guy and find it. Mm-hmm. But when you get a 10-digit grid coordinate, it's going to be 44, meaning these 2 digits, like we talked about, I'm in my 1,000-meter grid square.
Yep.
That means I'm 325 meters easting, and I'm 746 meters northing.
Yep.
So now I'm within 1 meter of the position I want to be in.
So what's not shown on those are the other numbers, the smaller numbers that come with that in the syntax on your GPS and so forth, which are the numbers we talked about earlier about just sort of ignoring because they're all the same.
And it's really, I think it's called a UTM area designator is what those first digits are. But what it basically means is if on the map of the Earth, which this is a horrible drawing, those first 2 digits are my largest number, okay? Yep. And so, for example, where I'm at right now, roughly, on my GPS, my easting says 0488485. It's a normal number. Throw the commas in there. I'm 488,485 meters east of the beginning position to get me into that grid square. Same thing, 4,040,433 northing. Okay, mm-hmm. Obviously Colorado, we're quite a ways above the South Pole, which is where the section starts.
Yep,
that's UTM in a nutshell. Is really very simple math, broken down into 1,000-meter grid squares. Do not overcomplicate it. If you set up your GPS to match your map, the datum, and everything we talked about, really, when you read the map and you start from the left side, so you're going left to right or easting, yep, bottom to top, northing, that's how you pinpoint it. Now, we're going to go over one more thing as far as getting into that grid square. On this protractor, there's a bunch of different scales, okay? And these scales match your map scale. And what your map scale is, more or less, is going to be the little grid squares all over it. So these little lines here will match up with my grid square because as the scale changes, the size of 1,000 meters changes too. Does that make sense? Did I explain that very well? On a large or small scale map, depending upon what it is, 1,000 meters could be this far.
Yes.
Or 1,000 meters could be that far. So your protractor has these little L angles, and it says scales, and those scales will match up with your map.
Yeah, it's just a measuring stick that exactly matches your map. So when you put that little measuring stick on there to plot your location on one of those L, you can basically easily put yourself in one of those squares and plot yourself.
It'll look like this, basically.
Yeah. And you don't want to use the wrong one because it'll put you in the wrong spot.
Right, exactly. The horizontal and vertical line has to line up with your grid square horizontal and vertical. They should be exact same size. So what I've done here This is a 1 in 75 thousandths, 1 in 24, and 1 in 50. Now, for simplification reasons, my map is 1 in 50 thousandths.
Yep.
So what I would be doing is I would line up this L angle, this corner, on the bottom left corner of the grid square that I'm in. And if I had an 8-digit grid coordinate that said 720, or a 10-digit grid coordinate that said 44721, or whatever the case may be, meaning 721 meters easting, I just slide this over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over. So I've got, as I'm sliding it from right to left, I go to 721. And then if I'm 368 meters northing, I move this up off the bottom line. Now I'm doing my northing. Wherever that stops, I just make a dot, and that's my pinpoint 1 meter location. Did that make any sense?
Yep.
Okay. That's how you read a 4, 6, 8, or 10-digit UTM grid coordinate on a UTM map. As Brian said, it doesn't take a genius to figure out 2/3 over and 3/4 up or whatever. You can get pretty close by just pinpointing it. This just gets you exact, but you can get, in most hunting situations, you're going to get really close. Now, if you don't have a GPS, you need to be really precise. If you have a GPS, for speed purposes, because of the way I navigate or what I showed you earlier, I won't turn that GPS on until I'm real close and I can't find them. Then I'll turn it on with my grid coordinate plotted in there. And then it'll tell me, oh, you need to go 226 degrees northeast or whatever, whatever. And I walk right over to them.
Yep.
That is about all we were going to cover for this. Hopefully it makes sense. Just remember that everything needs to match. Go ahead.
It does make sense. One thing I want to get into a little more is like getting my bearing getting my azimuth and my bearing from the map. And to my GPS, to my compass, I mean.
And I think, are we going to want to cover that in this one or the next one?
Next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we've given enough to make people's brains do some somersaults and stuff. So
what we'll do on the next one is we'll cover the declination diagram, converting grid to magnetic to grid. We'll cover intersection, resection, back azimuths. And then after that's all covered, we'll basically do a brief overview of applying all this and why, and how you can use manual land navigation in continuity or right alongside your GPS to make you a more speedy land navigator, I guess, like to where you can do it much quicker and you can use them both together and make you better at it.
Yep. Cool, man. Well done, Aaron.
I didn't screw that one up that time, man. It's been a long time since I've had to teach this stuff.
This is really cool. I have some work to do, but now I understand all the concepts around what we discussed, and I think I can now start playing around with it to
Get lost,
to find my way. Like this is really cool. It's empowering.
It's important. And I was going to say one more thing because I listened to Corey Jacobson's podcast, right? So yeah. I don't smile a whole lot. So there's a couple issues with that. One, not long ago,
this is where he said he's looking for the weapon when you're posing with an animal after it's been killed because he's not sure whether you killed it with your bare hands or because the look on your face. And I saw some people on Facebook say something about it wouldn't kill you to smile, Aaron.
Yeah, I know, right? So, and that was James's deer on that one. But so here's the whole story with that, right? Like I had, I looked like a hippo when it was yawning, basically. Dude, I had an effed up grill. It was bad.
As a youth?
No, as I got older, I had, I used to fight quite a bit. And then I had an M16 barrel coming out of a Blackhawk go into my mouth and crack a bunch of my teeth. There's a lot of crap running down both legs right before that happened. So I just basically was like, I hated my teeth, right? I could floss them with rappel rope, right? I'm like a burrito shredder. So I have these giant gaps in my teeth. And even when I laugh a lot of times, I'll catch myself going, laughing like that because I
Mm-hmm.
had such a complex for my teeth. And I think I asked my dad when I was a kid once, can I get braces? And he said, yeah, we can whittle you some, which was a no, right? We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So, but that is like not making excuses because people I'm finding out thought I was just always in a bad mood until we started doing this podcast and they learned I'm actually never serious. Well, very rarely.
Right.
Uh, but I just hate my teeth. And so I hardly ever smile because when I do smile and I'm like, man, I can see a giant gap in my teeth, right? Like, I'm like, I hate my teeth. So that's why I don't smile is
Aaron,
the big problem.
your teeth they're good, man. I mean, from what I can see,
Now, well, I tell you what,
did you get a
I
little
met
work done on them,
well,
or
I
they
met
just sort of?
super cool dude I was on. I posted a spotting scope 5 years ago on monster muleys, and a dude PM me and he's like, "Hey, let's meet over at Red Rocks and I'll take a look at it." He brought his kids. He's Mormon, so like you, he's got 19 kids, right? He's got a whole squad. He's got an alpha team, and he had little rugrats running everywhere. And I
Yeah.
flipped and he looked through it and he was like, hey, okay, so he was just going to pay me what I asked for it. I'm like, nah, dude, you got a bunch of kids. Don't worry about it. I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but he told me he was a dentist, and I was like, dude, I should probably come see you. And dude, he took very good care of me. He did $28,000 in work. Like,
Woo.
not that everybody wants to hear, but like none of these back here
Uh-huh.
they're none of them are real, right? They were all cracked, and I had wisdom teeth growing in that he had to pull out. And in fact, I put off for so long getting that wisdom tooth come out. That little Peckerwood lied to me, and I drove. He's in Grand Junction now. I drove over to see him, and he knocked me. Whatever, put the
Yeah,
numbing
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, he just clamped onto that thing and popped it out because I was worried it was going to hurt, and he was like, "Yeah, it came out fine." And I was, he's he's one of those dudes, literally, like, not to be like, if someone ever did anything to him or his family, I would probably, we're talking fingernail pulling. He is one of the only people on earth I know is a genuinely solid, good-hearted dude. Like, he is just a great, great guy. And his kids are funny because, and you may have seen on Facebook the kid that drew the rhino.
Yeah.
That's his son, drew that rhino. And they follow me, you know what I mean, online and
Yeah.
stuff. But, dude, he did so much work. Like, I have bridges and implants and all kinds of crap back here because I didn't have like hardly any teeth. So when I'd smile, I had this huge complex, and I was like, oh my God, I have these horrible teeth. And then my wife has like toilet bowl white perfect teeth. And I was like, can we like just pull one of yours and sell it and fix mine? You always got a kick out of that. But so that's why I don't generally smile, although I am
Getting
conscious
better.
of popular belief. I am always in a good mood.
Well, the thing is, especially in the United States, we put such an emphasis on teeth. We really do, and it's a sign of I mean, we judge people by their teeth a lot. And
Oh, yeah.
when I was in
Dude,
Japan,
they comment on here on how pretty your teeth are.
Yeah.
They're all like, "Oh, he has such perfect teeth." I'm like,
it's funny because when I was in Japan, they just don't put an emphasis on it at all. At least back in 1994, 95, and so it was a shock to me because I got off the plane, I'm hanging out in Japan, and everybody has crooked teeth everywhere, and they don't think anything of it. It's just
Yeah.
normal. And here, it's very rare that people have teeth that aren't all pretty.
yeah,
So-
oh yeah. Well, mine are not pretty. They're just functional now.
Hey, dude, they look pretty good. You should get used to the smiling thing because in Japan, that's how they laugh and they cover their face because
Yeah.
their teeth are all.
Oh man. Well, I was watching Terminator, the new one,
Yeah.
right? And like Arnold smiles in it. That's how I feel when I smile. He's like, I hate my smile. It's bad, but so anyway, that's why I don't smile. So which
Well, isn't it also because you're a stone cold killer, and so sometimes that just comes out.
that's what everybody. I mean, I get crap about that, but I just hate my teeth. Like, I mean, not to have Phelps make fun of me. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not an overly smiley guy for photos to begin with, but maybe if I had $40,000 veneers, I'd be just a smiling little chatty patty. But
Dude, you sound like a girl, all worried
it's
about
bad.
what
I
people
know.
think about your crooked teeth, you know?
Dude, I have it's been so bad with my teeth. Like, I can't believe we're talking about this on a podcast, but it was to a point I'm like, man, I'm gonna have dentures when I'm freaking 40. Like
Yeah.
in Detroit, one, I didn't brush like I should have. I guess they didn't have something in the water or
Yeah.
whatever
Oregon's
that
kind
helped.
of notorious
Uh,
for bad.
oh yeah.
You don't have, like, your teeth can. My mom grew up, I think, in California, and they had like fluoride in the water and stuff like that, and their teeth were
Yeah.
pretty strong, but
We didn't have fluoride in the
not a
water.
lot of
And I
minerals.
mean,
Not a lot of minerals in the water in Oregon.
no, so I don't think that helped, nor did now I brush constantly. But either way, that is why. But yeah, it
That's
has
funny,
nothing to
Aaron.
do. Like I've definitely I did. It's hilarious how people immediately I don't smile. He's a kid, right? Like he's a horrible person. I hate my teeth, Peckerwoods. That was the story behind that. Yeah, I
The
mean,
thing is, and my sisters mentioned this. You've got good dimples, Aaron. So
Jody says that all the
if you
time.
just do this, with your lips pursed like closed, you can pull it off, dude. It looks, but you do. All of a sudden, you don't look that tough anymore with the
Oh, I
dimples.
know,
With the
right?
dimples, you look kind of like a kid.
Oh, I was talking to one of the guys hunting, and he was like, "Yeah, I've heard all kinds of stuff about you," because he was laughing about
Yeah.
how goofy I am, right? I'm farting in camp and crop dusting everyone. And so he must have just thought because I don't smile in hunting shots or whatever that I'm just an unhappy person, which like I'm one of the happiest guys you'll ever meet. And so I just don't like my teeth. But I will smile more if Corey wants to sell Elk 101 and he needs to win more world championships and I'll get veneers. I'll be a smiling son of a gun.
All right. Well, dude, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for all the help and all the work you put into this topic. I know it's been a lot of work, and but I think people really appreciate that. So
Yep, no problem. We'll probably knock out, well, who knows with our schedules, maybe next Thursday.
we'll get it.
Another one?
Yeah, yeah, maybe Thursday, and I'll try to get this one out as soon as possible. And stay
Oh, yeah,
gritty.
ethical shot distance is coming up. All right, thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Bye. All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowman TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.